Okay, so we're going to change the format a little bit. Let me go over what I want to accomplish in this video. I want to go over a little bit about online ICD9 code sets. I want to talk to you a little bit about how the 2011 codes are coming out soon, the general layout of the digestive system, and then I want to talk about combo codes that are particular to the digestive system, and then go through about 4 or 5 examples so that way you can kind of see it in action. I've chosen to use the online system because it's easier to see. I think you can be able to see the index and kind of my thought process rather than doing it through a live video capture. It just seems to be a little bit easier to see, and I think it'll be a little bit easier to follow. There's a danger with online ICD9 coding sets. In particular, trying to search for a code, you should still always use the index if one is available. Otherwise, their search function could actually give you an erroneous code. One example that I use to convince a physician of this is personal history of malignant neoplasm of the prostate. Just looking for the history code, the correct code is in the V10 family, but the site only listed prostate, so when they used the search functionality, it didn't come up with the correct code. It came up with about, I'd say, 150 codes that they went through and still didn't find it. So it's still better to use something with an index. Even this one that I'm using, ICD9 data, it's questionable just in that if I go to the tabular codes, the volume 1, it doesn't have any of the codes that that code will exclude. So I still believe the book is best, but just for educational purposes, I think it'll be easier to follow by doing it online. You'll notice here that on this one that I'm using, ICD9data.com, I've got free 2008, 2009, 2010, and look, 2011. Why would 2011 be here? Well, if you look right here, the 2011 codes are effective this Friday. Now, for the class, we're still going to stick with the 2010 codes. But understand that in the clinical world, the ICD9 codes are actually effective October 1 of the preceding year. So 2012 will be effective October 1, 2011. General layout of the digestive tract is kind of the general layout of the codes. So if I go to the digestive system, you'll notice that it starts with the teeth, the mouth, and the jaws, and then it goes down into the esophagus, stomach, upper intestines, the appendix, any hernias in the abdominal cavity, some of the enteritis and colitis going into the colon, other diseases of intestines and peritoneum. It kind of takes care of the rectum and anus, and then other diseases of the digestive system are pretty much other organs that are within the abdominal cavity, such as, just click here real quick, liver, the gallbladder, biliary tract, etc. That's the general layout. Now, something you need to be careful of is combination codes. Now, combination code is something like diverticulitis with hemorrhage. It's one disease with another disease. So if you look here in the index, we're going to go to, oops, I was thinking gastritis, diverticulitis, diverticulitis, cecum, colon, intestine, acute with hemorrhage. Okay, you'll see it has its own code, 562.13. I don't code 562.1 and then code another code with hemorrhage. This actually is the correct code. If there's any sort of rupture, then it would be 562.10. But see how it kind of goes, how the two codes go hand in hand. You don't need to code two codes when there's a combination code, and these are prolific in the digestive system. So I want to take another example here. We're going to look at gastrointestinal hemorrhage due to acute antral ulcer. So the first thing we're going to look up is ulcer. get my alphabet right here. Ulcus, C, ulcer, ulcerated. Okay, and we'll go down here to look at the entries that are there. Ulcer. I'm looking for antral. Antral, here it is right here. It says C, ulcer stomach. So we're going to go down a little bit further. And we're going to look up ulcer stomach. I see right here I've got several choices. So again, gastrointestinal hemorrhage due to acute antral ulcer. If I look at ulcer stomach acute, so now I've limited it down to these options, and it said with hemorrhage, but it didn't mention perforation, so this would be my code 531.0. Now again, there's no exclusions here, so I would want to verify this in the book, which fortunately I already did, and this is the correct code. But you get kind of an idea about how these combination codes work together to have one code with two different diseases or an exacerbation of another disease. With that being done, let's go ahead and go through a couple of examples, and we will see if this can help. So the first one is appendicitis with generalized peritonitis. Appendicitis. Alright, I gotta get more coffee in me, the brain just is not working. Appendicitis. Okay, with generalized peritonitis. With I'm looking at this peritoneal abscess, but it's just, oh, nope, here we go. Peritonitis generalized or rupture. So 540.0 looks like the code that it's going to be. You won't be able to see this, but I'm going to look up in my ICD9 code book and see if that is. I'm doing these along with you. And I'm using another book for examples, so that way I don't spoil any wonderful surprises that might be waiting in the ICD9 book. 540.0. Acute appendicitis with generalized peritonitis. So that is exactly what we were looking for. That is the right code. Next one is gastrointestinal bleeding due to acute duodenal ulcer. So this is another ulcer. You'll notice that I'm not going straight to the gastrointestinal bleeding, because typically it's the hemorrhaging or the internal bleeding that is looked at second with these combination codes. So anytime I see bleeding or hemorrhaging, I'm going to assume that that's going to be part of the combination code and look for the other due to first. So ulcer, ulcer, duodenal. Duodenal with hemorrhage, but I want acute duodenal ulcer. So now I've limited it down to here. And gastrointestinal bleeding to it, so it's with hemorrhage. There is no mention of any perforation. So we're going to try this code, 532.0. Almost looks like it has a fifth digit to it. 532.0. Oh yes, this you can't see in the book, but for anything that begins with 532, there's always a fifth digit of 0 or 1, and 0 is without mention of obstruction, and 1 is with obstruction. 532.0 is acute duodenal ulcer with hemorrhage, and there's no mention of obstruction, so it's going to be 532.00, which is this one right here. Acute duodenal with hemorrhage without obstruction. Okay, third example, acute and chronic cholecystitis with cholelithiasis. Sounds nasty already. Okay, so I'm going to look at cholecystitis. Oh, right there, cholecystitis. Cholecystitis with cholelithiasis, which is the calculus stones. Acute is 575.0, but that's not with the stones. Oh, nope, here it is. I gotta go all the way back to gallbladder. I gotta see cholelithiasis, so I went too far. Back to my index. Cholelithiasis. Let's make sure there isn't anything there. With cholecystitis, I've got two codes here, 574.0 and 574.1. So unfortunately, again, you can't see this. I'm going to look these up just to make sure. 574.1, again, we've got this obstruction and non-obstruction, so this is going to be a 5-digit code. 574.0 is calculus of gallbladder with acute cholecystitis, so that covers the acute. And then 574.1 is calculus gallbladder with other cholecystitis. And one of the notes that's in here that you can't see online is any condition classifiable to 574.2 with cholecystitis chronic. Again, there's a 5th digit with mention, without mention of obstruction, so correct answer would be 574.00 and 574.10. Now we've got those three, and just for kicks and grins, this is a new book and it's actually kind of nice. If you want, email me and I can give you the name of it. It's put together quite well. Of course, that would assume that I can actually flip through the book and find the answers. 6.1. Okay, 540.0, which is the answer that we had, and 532.00, which is the answer to the second one, and then the last one that we did is 574.00 and 574.10. So, those are the correct codes. So I hope this was helpful, and we will see you next time.